sentence for?
Because the embezzler must have had specialized knowledge and access to internal financial records, we can presume that the embezzler worked for XYZ Corporation as either an accountant or an actuary.
Okay,
But an accountant would probably...
Okay, you read is so fast. You have to slow down. I know you grasp it. I know you do, like, because you're very intelligent, but I feel, okay, what is happening there? Tell me in your own, don't even, like, don't look at it. Tell me, do you know?
Yeah, so they're saying that there was an embezzlement, and in order to do the embezzlement, that they deduced that it had to be either the accountant or the actuary, because there's like knowledge.
Because why though?
There's like, yeah,
why
it's like, oh, okay, they knew something, and the only people who know this thing are these two guys, so it has to be one of these.
So they had to have, because the embezzler either had specialized knowledge and had access. We are assuming that the person worked for AXY Corporation as an accountant or an actuary. Okay, cool. Continue on.
Right. So, but an accountant would probably not make the kind of mistakes that the ledger entries that led to, but an accountant would probably not make the kind of mistakes in ledger entries that led to the discovery of the embezzlement. Thus, it is likely that the embezzler is one of the actuaries.
All right, so what is our conclusion here?
That the embezzler is an actuary.
Yes. And we're saying that because it's not likely that an accountant would make those mistakes. And we're assuming that our only options are an accountant or an actuary. So what we want to weaken this argument. So what would be your prediction of like how you would weaken this?
Well, you would weaken it by attacking the idea that specialized knowledge. What if there was a way that somebody else could have had that specialized knowledge that opens the field of possibilities to who it is?
Okay. Or I was thinking maybe the accountant was like, what is that called? Like when you're like reverse psychology, like maybe the accountant made the mistake on purpose so that you would assume that it's an actuary and not.
Yeah, there are a couple of ways. That's the first one is the one I mentioned. The one you mentioned is good too.
Yeah, you don't have to come up with one. You're totally good.
Oh, okay.
And so, no, you're good. But this is an accept question. So if it weakens it, we cross it off, right? So we're not looking for the right answer right away. We're looking for the 4 wrong answers. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and start with A.
The actuary's activities while working for XYZ Corporation were more closely scrutinized by supervisors than were the activities of accountants. Yeah, if they're more closely scrutinized, then they're not going to be making those mistakes. So I'd get rid of A.
The actuary's activities while working for a corporation were more closely. But are we saying that the embezzler was an accountant? But I'm confused on.
Yeah, but it weakens it because it's
basically because they could have made mistake. Okay, but I mean, wasn't the mistakes made by the? I guess it makes more likely that the accountant could have made a mistake in general or not learned. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, what about B?
That's likely. It makes it less likely that the actuaries were making mistakes if they're more scrutinized than accountants.
Okay. What it's about?
Like they're being more if like a detective were telling me, oh, like an accountant and an actuary would make this mistake, not an accountant, and I'd be like, why? The actuary is monitored more than an accountant. They'd probably be more on their game, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. There is evidence of breaches in computer security at the time of the embezzlement that could have given persons outside of XYZ Corporation access to internal financial records. That definitely weakens it. So that's not it.
What? How does it weaken it?
It weakens it because if they were, if people had access to internal financial records, then it like I said earlier, it opens the door for whether or not, because they're deducing that it's either an accountant or an actuary based on the fact that only a limited amount of people have access to this knowledge. But if that knowledge is public, then you can't say it's either one of these two. It could be anybody.
Excellent.
XYZ Corporation employs 8 accountants, whereas it only has 2 actuaries on its staff. I didn't see how that was relevant. I thought that was so neutral. I was like, okay, what does it matter?
I would leave this one open because it's like it's more likely, because I feel like it's like just probability that it's like more likely that one of the 8 people could have made a mistake, but I could also see it being the correct answer, but I probably would leave it open.
Okay, let's leave it open because I don't have any feelings.
Well, and if it doesn't weaken it, it's our answer, so we definitely want to leave it open.
Yeah, I feel like it's just there. An independent report released before the crime took place concluded that XYZ Corporation was vulnerable to embezzlement. I don't know about that one. I just feel like it could be argued that it does everything. It could be strengthening, it could be weakening, it could do nothing. I just feel like that one's just out there, so just leave it. Certain security measures at XYZ Corporation have made it more difficult for the actuaries to have access to internal financial records than for the accountants. Yes, that weakens, so I'd get rid of E. So it's between C and D.
So which one is more likely to weaken that it's likely in the idea that the embezzler is one of the actuaries? Which one do you think calls that into question more?
I feel like D does, but the thing is with C is
How do
it's
you think? Okay, so how does D weaken it? That it's not an actuary.
oh no, I'm sorry, it doesn't weaken that it's not an actuary. It weakens the argument that the embezzler is hold on, what am I saying? Now I'm confused. Hold on, it happened to me with the except. Hold on. Well, now I gotta figure out what we're doing. Okay, yeah, sorry. It doesn't really weaken it. It kind of strengthens the argument that like it was vulnerable to embezzlement, but it doesn't really strengthen the argument that it was an embezzler was an actuary. So I feel like it's kind of like it's also like D. It's kind of neutral.
Okay, sorry, you got me. You confused me for a second. Okay,
I
let's
confused myself, girl.
focus on one answer. Okay, so let's look at D. Do you think D weakens our argument?
No.
No, I agree. I don't think it does at all. Because like this is just showing that we were vulnerable to embezzlement. That it absolutely could still be one of the actuaries, right? Like there's nothing to attack that.
Yeah.
Now, does C do anything to weaken the argument?
It doesn't do anything. I just feel like it's just there.
Okay, it does, because the reason is that it doesn't do as much, but it's definitely weakens it more than D, in the sense that there's 8 accountants and only 2 actuaries.
Mhm.
So it's more likely that it can be in, like there's more of a chance that one of the accountants could have done it than the 2 actuaries itself. Like it's just more of it's just a probability thing.
Oh, could we go over that? Because I felt like that was irrelevant based on like I was like, okay, so what if there are 8 and there are only 2 on that side? Like,
So
what if
like if you have 10 people, like it doesn't do a ton, but it's like if I was like, oh, someone stole the candy and there's 8 girls and 2 boys, is it more likely that it was a girl or a boy that stole the candy?
a girl?
Right.
But
Just from likelihood. It's not a strong answer at all,
it's
but
not
it does more than D for sure.
okay. I can see that. I just feel like that's
It's not great, but this is an accept question. So does it do anything to kind of raise your eyebrows of, well, it's a better chance that it was an accountant than an embezzler?
I feel like it weakens it like 0.1%.
There, but that's still better than, I would say, like 5% out of 100, like 5%.
It's just it's very weak. But yeah, I get it. I get it.
But it does more than, like, because it technically, you outnumber the accountants, outnumber the actuaries 4-1.
Okay, I see that.
Or
I
just
just
the fact that
feel like
there's only 2 actuaries should make you think like there's at least like a little bit less of a chance that it's an actuary, because there's only 2 of them versus 8.
okay. I can see that.
Okay.
I just think
And so
it
that's why if it does anything to weaken it, we want to cross it off, which I should not have crossed.
okay.
What did I cross off?
And the answer is the
Oh,
answer is
I moved it. Okay, so our answer is going to be D, because it does nothing at all.
yeah, I can see
And
that.
that's probably why this one, I would guess that this one is a tougher question, because oftentimes like the